I was stubborn enough for the both of us. Hey guys, Chris J from Bluecoat Music. That music there is from Abby Walters, a very talented musician out of Nashville, Tennessee. So today we interviewed Officer Claudia Moreno. She is the co-worker, close friend, and pretty much adopted older sister of fallen police officer Elmer Jonathan Diaz of the Lemoore Police Department. We discuss his life, and we also discuss what it means to be a police officer and how you live your off-duty life and how important that is. So again, there's tremendous value on this episode, and I hope you enjoy. Claudia.
Yes.
How did we meet? Was it all through social media?
Yes. Well, you'd been involved in some things where, in some activities, like for example, when you had the two officers ran through Fresno, and I knew you were part of that.
Project Endure.
Yes, on their way to Sacramento.
Right. So
and then
that's how you got wind of who we were.
Yes, I thought that was pretty cool. And then when there was the other officer that when they did the bike ride for Ron Elsing.
Yeah, that was our second Project Endure.
Yes.
You met up with us. I remember seeing you there.
Yes. So the person that was riding the bikes, a couple of us got in contact with him, and I guess before there was like a little company that he was running where he was making bags. So at that time I was working for Fresno PD, but I was inside working in equipment and supply for the officers. Okay. So I remember getting a couple of emails trying to show certain units these pretty cool bags. One of the bags, my dad ended up buying it for me. It's the rifle bag for the helmet. So anyhow, but I found out about you guys then too, and then one of the supervisors for the companion officers had met up with you guys over at one of our stations. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was like, I gotta give them something. So the captain was there for the Northwest substation, and so was the supervisor for the companion officers. And I said, you know what, give me a few of the challenge coins. And I think I had like enough money to buy like 2 at the time. Mm-hmm. And so she jumped in and she said here, and I think she bought like 4 more because she wanted all of you guys to have them. And then that's when I went and handed them to you guys. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. She did that.
Yeah, that was nice. There was a lot of media there at that time when you showed up, right? So
I don't remember. I remember I was really tired and I couldn't stay long because I had to work that night.
Yeah.
And then I took off. Yeah. I was working midnights at the time.
Yeah, I remember there was a lot of media, and I was trying to be real nice to you, but just running around everywhere because, I don't know, I was getting pulled every which way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, very cool. So we're here to talk about your partner. You said you were just talking about to his mom and telling her about the podcast?
Yes, she was pretty excited about it. We're coming up on his 1-year anniversary, and so she's very grateful because she's very proud of her son and proud of everything that he's done. And so she agrees. She's grateful. She doesn't want his legacy to be forgotten.
I'm glad that's really important to me, for sure, for the family to be okay with us talking about him and stuff like that, you know. So tell me about the kind of person he was.
So when I first met Jonathan, very young, we both started at a very small agency. At the time that we both went to the academy, there wasn't a lot of agencies hiring because at that time the state of California was in a big deficit. A lot of agencies were having furloughs, and but we ended up getting the opportunity to get hired here at Huron PD together, and I just remember him being very young and very kind and sweet. I mean, we joked around, and I mean, we all have different sides to us, but he always came off very, very kind and sweet and
Yeah.
genuine. Yeah.
Were you guys partners? Like they push the same A car or?
So they because the town is so small, you don't you don't write doubles in the unit.
Oh,
It's just
sorry. I'm so used to that.
but yeah, you if it was just you two, it's just you together, pretty much managing the entire town on your own.
Okay.
So so that's how we were partnered up. So there was many times where it was just us two together. Yeah.
That's the same thing as partners, especially in a small town or smaller
Yeah.
city. So pretty much when there's like domestics and things like that, you guys would do you show up to the call and wait for your partner?
Yes.
I'm so not used to like L car tactics. I'm only used to A car tactics. So you just
Yeah, we
wait for each
handled a
other.
lot of calls together. Yeah,
So
we
essentially,
did.
you guys were partners, pretty much.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And what kind of?
Because he had a little bit less experience than I did. I was directed to, and at that time I was, because of the time I had already spent there at that agency, I was like a senior officer. I was the senior officer there during our shift. So I would be directed by the sergeant to, hey, show Jonathan how to do this, or show Jonathan how to do that.
Cool.
So that's where we were at, him and I.
So you were like his big sister,
Yes, I consider myself his big sister. Yes.
showing him the ways of the warrior.
Yes. Yes.
What kind of copper was he?
He was still learning, and you know, he's just, to me, he's just a big old kid. We joked around a lot. But one thing I would set out to do, because I had been in his shoes myself, was to never um, humiliate him. If we joked around, it was nothing that I couldn't say to him to his face.
Right.
My intentions were always good with him.
Yeah.
But he was still learning. I could tell that he was a little bit naive about certain things. But that was at the very beginning of his career.
Yeah.
And he was very humble, very humble. He grew up in Huron. And it's one of those things that I kind of already sensed anyway myself, was that that he just wanted to help his family. But in kind of talking to other people that are pretty close to him, just to confirm, that was pretty much what he wanted to do. He wanted to help his family, and
Yeah.
he didn't. To me, at least, the few times that we would talk, because even after we both went our separate ways and went on to bigger agencies, we always kept in touch. Even if it wasn't on a daily basis, it was just kind of check up on each other or to joke around with each other, almost like no time had passed by. And he never told me about his accomplishments. He never boasted about his accomplishments. So I didn't know exactly where he was at. I just had heard that he had gotten a position for Lemoore PD as a reserve officer. And after he passed away was when I found out that they picked him up as a reserve, but he quickly climbed the ladder. They put him on full time and started taking on projects on his own and putting projects together, mainly like to reach out to at-risk youth. And this stuff I didn't find out until after the fact. So it just goes to show that he didn't do anything for the flash or the media attention. He did it because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I read that he got the Officer of the Year 2018.
Yes, he did. And again, those are the things that I didn't find out through him. When that happened, one of our friends tagged me on the photo for the Lemoore PD page. And I remember posting on it that same year. I said, see, I taught him well, but it was a joke.
Yeah.
Um, but again, it just kind of it showed the relationship that him and I had.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with this situation, we get a lot of training on because we have the option to stay armed while we're off duty.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us do. We get some training in the academy as far as how to deal with situations off duty.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things we have to worry about, like, backup guns, ammunition, backup officers, radio, all that stuff.
Right.
It's very, very dangerous when we're working, and multiply that times 100 when we're not working.
Right.
Um, but I always say that I feel like we don't talk about these incidents enough out loud,
Hmm.
out of respect for families and stuff like that. But I think it's really important to dissect these incidents out loud with each other in our own community of officers, so that we can learn and maybe um, help a future officer not get hurt or stay alive. So,
Right.
given all that, what do you think is something that we could learn from what happened to your partner, just to
I think
better future officers?
in the situation when this happened, this was one of the reasons why I've changed a lot in how I associate with my friends and my family. Um, but because of what happened, it was also a reason of why I've been so self-secluded for many years, and people couldn't understand. Well, I live alone and I live with my kids, so I don't tell people where I live, even if it's a girlfriend. I just don't like everybody knowing where I live, so it's only a chosen few. And with Jonathan, um, this particular person that he associated with, although he was affiliated with law enforcement, um, from what I gathered after the fact was that he wasn't a good person, and he was told repeatedly to not associate with him. And I think, a lot of times, we don't necessarily give our families that much credit because we feel like, oh, they don't understand, the lifestyle, um, and it's kind of forgotten that at the end of the day, when this career is over, that's really all you have, and you really should consider your family more. Yes, I do think that family and those close to us could learn how to relate to us a little bit better, but I also think that in law enforcement we forget how important it is to listen to our family and to our friends. And I think that because he's such a good person, he did get too comfortable, um, and he did just go in. Uh, you know, he went in. I think I personally would have just separated the situation, but I hate to come in after the fact and say, "This is what I would have done." But I think that was probably one of the big issues, is that he had gotten too comfortable with somebody that his family and very close friends had already warned him about, that he's not, something about him isn't right. He's not, I don't think he's a good person for you. So I think that's one of those things that we really need to be cautious about, is because of the line of work that we're in, is who we associate ourselves with, who we open up our homes to, and who we open up our personal lives to as well.
Yeah, yeah. I work in the city, the same streets where I grew up, and um, a lot of friends as a kid, as a teenager, who became gang members or whatnot. And I was starting to realize I was going to get into law enforcement. It forced you to grow up and really have to make some hard decisions. Um, and that is something that is hard to do, because these are your friends you had your whole life, and all of a sudden you're distancing yourself, or even for
Yeah.
me, in some cases, completely cutting off. And
Yeah.
you worry about that judgment from your friends and all that. But that's why not everybody could do law enforcement. You have to do things a different way. It's a
It's
different
drastic.
lifestyle,
You have to make some drastic changes. Yeah.
for sure. So after after Officer Diaz passed away, how did your career path go? I know it's been a year. Oh,
Yes, it's been a year.
yeah.
So, being that being that I'm a mom and my kid comes first, I already had enough stress on me. And I mean, people do it all the time. It's doable. You can do it. My particular situation, I just kind of had a lot coming down on me all at once. But I was really afraid of opening up and saying, gosh, I'm overwhelmed right now. And so I really needed to slow things down, but I didn't know how to. So I ended up having to go inside and work back in the position that I worked in before, which was in property and evidence. And it was a relief. I remember one of the sergeants, when I was turning all my stuff over to her, she asked me how I was feeling, and she had worked in the area that I was in when, because we switched. So I was working in Southeast and then switched over to Southwest. You can assign yourself to work in a certain area, and then what we have is like this change every year where you sign up to, if the slot is open, it goes by seniority. If you may want to change areas or time slots or whatever. So I had switched over to a different area. But the previous sergeant, she was there when it all kind of unfolded. So she saw me and she brought it up to me. And she's, I think she did it more to give me that reassurance that, like, you know, this isn't your fault. Nobody hates you. Nobody thinks you're lazy or that you failed anybody. She was just
Because
like,
because you went inside or took an admin position?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because I went inside and and stuff. But she even asked me, she said, she said, how do you feel? And I said, I'm good. And she said, do you feel relief? And when she said that, I said, yeah, and I felt like, wow, she either I'm showing it in my face or she just understands.
Yeah.
And so she knew I had been overwhelmed. But I didn't feel good inside, even though I knew it was best for me and my daughter to be inside because of, I mean, I ended up developing health issues and it was rough. And
Right.
I think I did it to myself because I was holding it all in.
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah. So
I,
yeah. So eventually, I ended up applying through recommendation of a really close friend of mine because his wife is a detective at the agency I work at now. He said you should really go there and just be a reserve officer just so that my post wouldn't expire. I thought, okay, I'll do it. So I did it. So it was never my intention to leave the department altogether, which was really hard for me because I was still in good standing. And I mean, that's the family that I had been with on and off since 2006. So this other agency comes in and they're like, we really want you, we'll make adjustments, we understand what happened. We work around family. I mean, they just kept selling it to me. And it feels nice to be wanted. Not that I felt unwanted at my agency. It
Mhm.
feels really nice.
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity, and it's definitely a big change where I work at now because the community is very, very law enforcement friendly.
So now you are full-time police officer?
Yes, at
Okay.
another agency.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
but it's
cool.
very different.
Yeah.
Very different. I work the day shift, and people wave at you, and they're really nice, and they want to give you things, and it's just I'm not used to it. I'm still getting
Shoot,
used to it.
I want to work there. Maybe I should switch up. So,
It's still a transition, though.
yeah. Tell me about we do a lot of interaction on social media. You started
Hmm.
a Facebook page or a club.
Yes.
I thought that was a
So
great idea. So, yeah.
I remember you telling me that, and it felt really nice hearing that from you because of everything that you do. And I could see the quality of work that you put out and the effort and the meaning behind everything. So it meant a lot to me. But so I ultimately ended up going to see a therapist that works with law enforcement. And I was trying to be able to recuperate from this because it just seemed like it just was not happening. And it was going to a place where I just thought, maybe I'm just very weak. Maybe just this isn't for me. Maybe because, I'm a woman and I'm sensitive and I have a kid. Like I was throwing all kinds of questions at myself as to why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. So the therapist suggested that I get a book and I write everything down. And she said, what do you think hurts you the most about all of this? And one of the things was that he was so young and he had so much going for him, and he had such a great influence on so many people, and now it's just going to be gone. So she said, have you thought about, because she's not on social media, but she knows that I was, and she said, have you thought about just maybe memorializing him in a way so that, people can put in their thoughts and feelings? And I thought, yeah, why not? So little by little, I have other ideas growing in my mind since then. And I've talked to, again, some close friends of his, and of course his mom. I try to keep in touch with her as much as I can. But yeah, that's why I started that page.
So
So
what's the page? What is it about?
the hero legacy. And I remember trying to come up with a name. So you helped me out with that too, and I appreciate that. So I was hoping that it wouldn't just be necessarily about him, because I thought, well, sometimes we don't realize as officers the pain that maybe another fellow officer is going through with all the grief, because we may not show it, and we can't show it necessarily because we're at work.
Yeah.
So I thought that this would be a good place to just kind of jot down feelings and ideas, and I didn't want it to be a somber page. So I wanted to come up with other things. One of the other things is the appreciation of officers, and to remind each other, because I know sometimes we get kind of bitter about how we feel in general, how we feel like we're being treated by the public. But I thought, well, why should we wait for the public? We should encourage each other.
Yeah.
Why not? So that's what I want it to be. And it's small. There's not a lot of members, but that's not what I'm really worried about. It's just, even if it's just one or two people, and I can see and feel the effect that it's had, because these people message me and they tell me, I'm
Yeah.
glad that you did this.
So the page is a community really for the surviving partners of fallen officers, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. It's a great idea. Seeing your posts and chatting with you a lot on social media, it's nice to see that you're going through what you're going through, but you're very self-aware and in touch of how you're feeling, and you're making efforts to face those hard feelings, and you're doing things outwardly to remember your partner and to yourself really kind of just come out of this as have a good perspective, and deal with your emotions. And that's an inspiration on its own, because not everybody could do that. So you've been very strong.
It's not easy.
Yeah. So just seeing that coming from you, it's very inspirational. I just wanted to tell you that. So yeah, thanks for doing that page, and thanks for supporting everything we do. Tell Officer Diaz's mother that we said thank you for letting us do this. Also, let me ask you before we close out, do you want to share your favorite memory with your partner?
Oh, let me think.
It's probably a
Well,
bunch.
I was always pretty protective of him. That was one of the, so Papitas was the nickname that came up. I have a habit of doing this. Anybody that's close to me, I usually end up making nicknames up for people, but it's all out of love. And so that was how the news was broken to me, because I was in a fog when the information was given to me. I was very protective of him, again, like a little brother. The last time we worked together, I told him, don't just do things because someone tells you to do it. If something doesn't feel right, research it. You can't get fired because you want to research something and do the right thing. You have to think, hey, you know what? I can be, violating somebody's rights, or I can be sued civilly and end up losing everything. So if you question something, because, you know, this job is serious, just, you know, stay on it. Don't ever stop studying. Don't ever stop learning. And don't ever be ashamed of where you work, even if it is a small agency. You know, you get that sometimes. And I would always tell them, like, don't ever back down when people ask you where you work or start making fun of it. Because my thing was always, you know, just because it's a small town doesn't mean that that victim is any less than a victim than someone in a bigger town that has more money, a bigger city, more money, or
Right.
whatever. But I ended up calling them papitas because we didn't have a lot of great equipment. So we drove the Crown Vics, and we ended up getting those assigned to us. So after a while, you get a car assigned to you. And so I had my car, and he had his name. The car had his name. And everybody knew that I did not eat in my car. I kept even though the car was old, I always kept it clean. And so people knew, you know, if someone was getting the keys, you know, all right, that's Moreno's car, you know, don't eat in her car. So, so I came in one day, I was coming in on the night shift, and he was working the day shift. And I'm looking, and I see a bunch of French fries kind of laid out, and I see like, and this was like along the seat, and I see some ketchup wrappers. I'm looking, and I'm thinking, what? The thing is, this is like, if you're gonna make a mess in someone else's stuff, at least clean it up. So I'm kind of asking around, like, who had my car? So I end up finding out who had my car, and I'm waiting for him to come in. And I said, you know, hey, Jonathan, come in here. And so he comes into the report writing room, and so real harsh too. I was like, what's up, man? Why are you jacking up my car? And I was kind of in his face, and he would do this thing, and I don't know if he did it with anybody else, but he always did it with me, where he was lying. He would go like this and like act like he wasn't looking at me, and we'd be talking. So I finally yelled at him, and I said, you don't have nothing in your eye. Oh, I used some different words. I was like, stop poking in your eye, because you don't have nothing in your eye. And I said, I just want you to know, I already asked around. I know that you were driving the car. And he was like, how do you know it wasn't such and such? And I said, does he look like he dropped any fries? And then, so everybody was like laughing, because the other guy was a big guy. And I said, I know it was you. And so he's like, all right. And I said, just don't mess up my car anymore, papitas. And so like that just stuck after everybody just kept calling him that. So that ended up being his nickname. So papitas, like French fries in Spanish.
Right.
And so every time, but I never did it to humiliate him. If I ever called him that, it was just amongst us. It wasn't like anything outside of that. But that ended up being his nickname, and that was kind of the running joke of Papitas. But because that was his name, and that's how I knew him as, that's how the news ended up getting broke to me, because, you know, my friend's telling me this, and I'm kind of like, who are we talking about here? So she ended up telling me it was Papitas, and that's when it really hit me that it was him. But our last conversation was probably about 4 days prior to the incident, and we were talking about this bread that I'd never seen before, and it was like a Oaxacan bread, and I saw it in like a bakery, and I don't know any other way, and I hope I'm not offending anybody, but the only way I can describe it is it looks like a butt. So it's like round, and then there's like a split down the middle. I'm trying to figure out why this doll is in there. So he sends me a message, and he's like, just enjoy it. So I was like, I told him something, I'm telling him off, and I was like, get out of here. I was like, you're always disappearing and appearing out of nowhere. I said, it's always something like perverse, you know. And so we're just kind of laughing at it back and forth, and that was it, you know. But that just taught me a lesson, is like, now I check on my friends a lot more. I keep in touch with them a lot more. And even my mom, I used to not call her and tell her I'm on my way to work or I'm home from work, and now I do it all the time. So it's made some changes, it made an impact to where I made some changes in my life, but I think they were for the good, you know.
Yeah, I think those little things, like you're saying, calling, even though we're adults, calling your mom and letting you know you're home safe and all that, it's really important. Really nice thing that you mentioned there. So thank you for sharing
Thank you.
the memories and everything you said. I think could help out a lot of people also listening. So appreciate it.
Yeah. I think sometimes we don't. I was telling my friend, I said, you know what? We don't give certain people credit because we assume, well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do the right thing. But when you grow up and you have obstacles, if you look up the city of Huron, there's nothing there. So when you come from pretty much nothing and you overcome that, and then on top of that, you make it through the police academy, you make it through training, you climb up the ladder to where you're creating your own programs at this police department. You go and you buy your mom a house, and you buy your brother a car, and you do anything and everything that you can to make sure that your family is taken care of. You take your family out of the hood and take them somewhere else. I think that's a big accomplishment, and that's who he was. And I definitely think that he can serve as an inspiration to other kids. And I'm not saying they have to be police officers, but just to show, like, hey, you know what? You can make it too. You can go to college, or you can have a great career. This isn't it for you. So that's what I want. That's what I want to pass on as far as his legacy and his memory. That he's a great person, a great inspiration.
Thanks.
And thank you for everything you do. You guys are awesome. I hope that that this can continue as much as possible, and I wish you guys great success. You guys do a lot of good things. I think it should be broader. I think more people should know about you guys.
We're trying, so I think we'll get there. We'll help each other out in our causes.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
I was stubborn enough for the both of us. I left your heart to break and I love to rest. Although past fades, it won't give up, no. It's been knocking at my door. I've been spinning my wheels, but I'm wearing down. I've run all this time with no solid ground, but your heart beats strong in every town. I turned my back again. Ooh, fear is crippling me from moving my feet to where you are. I found out I'm my own worst enemy. I can't break free of these chains that I bear. These chains I bear. The consequences of a restless heart. They gave me years alone and years of false starts. I found comfort in this lonely dark, where I'm paralyzed and numb. Ooh, fear is crippling me from moving my feet to where you are. I found out I'm the own worst enemy. I can't break free of these chains that I bear. These chains I bear. These chains I bear. These chains I bear. Ooh, fear is crippling me from moving my feet to where you are. I found out I'm my own worst enemy. I can't break free of these chains. Fear is crippling me from moving my feet to where you are. I found out I'm my own worst enemy. I can't wears me down. But I'll carry these chains to another